Okay, my friends, it's finally happened. They are admitting that Bennu is biological, and here is exactly what Bennu is. Okay, my friends, there is something called the preponderance of evidence. And what does that mean? How much evidence can I show to prove my point? Well, I can show a ton. First of all, they have done all the chemistry. I don't care about that anymore. All the chemistry is done. It's exactly identical to what is in the human body. And it makes all the same chemistry. It has the same amino acids and all that stuff. So the chemistry is identical to the human body. Case closed on that. What else can I show? This is the sample they brought back. Look at these carefully. Those are what's called bundles. And they come out this way. Now they cut down, and looking down on them is this. All right, those are the sarcomeres of muscle fibers inside of muscle bundles. And then on top of that, they went through the membrane which surrounds the heart, and they came up with the phosphate surprise, which is a lot of phosphates which surround the membrane of the heart. So we have the sarcomeres, we have the bundles, we have the membrane, because they had to puncture through that to get to the muscle. The muscle doesn't lay on top. The muscle is underneath the membrane. So what else can I show? I showed you the muscle. That's muscle. This is from a heart attack victim. And these are the sarcomeres. And that's the sideways look, which is little blocks. And we also have the rope look, which is this. This is a cardiac muscle. All right? These are the little sarcomeres. And if you looked into it, you'd see them as a bundle, like little tiny round ball, little tubes. And that's precisely what we see. Precisely. And there's more over here, and there's more down there. They're everywhere because the heart is literally one gigantic muscle. Now, this, you have to get down into the heart to get at the muscle. That is the membrane. All right, this is what's in the Bennu samples. All 5 nucleobases used to construct DNA and RNA are in there, along with phosphates, which are membranes, have already been found and brought to Earth by OSIRIS-REx. The new discovery of ribose means that all the components to form the molecule RNA are present in Bennu. I mean, extreme details of biology, and I know exactly what that biology is, and you will too. Okay, they have found virtually all the chemistry that is in the human body in muscle, because this is muscle. Now I'm going to show you something they should test for, and if they test for it, it means that, well, I'll show you what it means. All right, what I would like to see them do is the catalase test. And all it is a catalase test, a rapid microbiological test that detects the presence of the enzyme catalase. Enzymes are very, very sophisticated. And in bacteria, by adding hydrogen peroxide, and they bubble up. I do this all the time with my Mudfossil specimens, and I'm going to tell you right now, that has catalase in it. And I'll talk about that later, but we're going to be talking about Bennu now, and I'd like to see them do the catalase test. Now, every living thing produces catalase enzyme. Now, this is not specifically catalase, but enzymes are extremely complicated little molecules, and they have all kinds of different what they call dipole or molecular moments. And they just, when they do their job, it's instantaneous. They can do millions of years of chemistry in a quarter of a second. Less than that. They are the most elegant things that have ever been produced. And guess who produces them? Bacteria. this is what they got to start understanding, is the depth of where we're going with this. Okay, my friends, I have to know every single thing there is to know about a heart if I'm going to claim there's hearts floating in space. So what is a heart made out of? Well, primarily made out of muscle. And this is what they came back with right here from Bennu. And that, my friends, is heart muscle. They call them sarcomeres. And I will show it to you. And this, my friends, is from the rope bundles. You see, it's all over the place. This is what wrapped the heart. They came down and got just the very surface, and then, because everything has like a membrane on it, and that's what they called it, the phosphate surprise, because they came up with these membranes. And then there's also membranes in between the sarcomeres, but this is rope. These are rope muscles, and that's what a heart is made of. I'm telling you, I know everything about this, 100%. The chemistry, because of the phosphate layer, there was a surprise to them. Phosphates are phospholipid membranes. And I'll show you this in a regular heart, but these are the sarcomeres. And they say there's clay, there's everything. Every single thing there is in these samples. It's exactly identical. If you gave this to somebody and said, is this from a creature's body? They say yes, no question whatsoever. However, there's more to go. There's a catalase test, which I think I mentioned or will. All right, so you saw the muscle bundles, and here's what they are. Cardiac muscle. There's these little round bundles, and we were looking right into them. There was a whole bunch of them. And that's because your heart is nothing but a big wrapped strap of these elongated muscles. And here it is right here. They just cut right down through it. But these are what they're made of, is these sarcomeres. And that's what pulls the muscle, and it twists. Your heart is not what the people think. Heart is like one big long piece of muscle, and it just does all that stuff. But the point being is, these are hearts out in space. And there's no question. It's zero. It's impossible to miss this. They break off right here. And I have friends that are anatomists that do autopsies and so forth, and they say, yes, they break right off. And the reason is there's iron banding, which is the red blood, and the black, which is in us, they call it blue. The artery in the vein pops right off. You know, it doesn't pop off, but it's easily falls off. You know, this is crazy, because we know there's no question. We have the anatomy. The anatomical samples are identical to what they should be. We have the rope muscle for the cardiac muscle. We have everything that makes up a human body. We have all the chemistry. We have everything. And this is a heart sarcomeres from an unfortunate cardiac arrest. Who died. And these are the same sarcomeres. And these are the phosphate layers, which go over the top. And if we cut this, we can see the rope style will be at this end, which is what they did with this right here. These are here. But if you splayed them out here, you'd be looking down at these blocks. That's all. That's all it is. The rope has blocks. Well, actually, it shows them. Right there. It's got all the little blocks. And if you cut it, you look into it, and you're looking into a whole bunch of little bundles, which is exactly what we were looking into. And then when we look down flat at it, we can see the blocks. This is not a big mystery here. There's no mystery. The mystery is, why can't they say, wow, let's think about this, because this changes everything. That heart right there is less than a mile. I mean, I think it's kind of small. It's like a quarter of a mile. You know, small. And these right here are the valves, and they cluster right in a cluster of valves, and then the potato shape comes down. So that heart would be the flat here and down there. These are where the valves are. Now, this is Bennu, which is another heart. I'm telling you, and this thing's gigantic. It's 144 miles across. Now, they got a spacecraft heading there right now, because these things are saturated with blood, which is saturated with metals. They claim that they can get all kinds of metals. Now, this shows it has actual tubes coming out of it. That's not an impact. Now, this is not actually a picture of it, but it's based on the best they can get of seeing it. And NASA shows the same thing, only they show it smelted. Well, actually right here. I thought I had it here, but I do not. Okay, I don't want to be rude, but unless you got something wrong with your mind, you have to understand what you're seeing here. I'm showing the samples from Bennu. All right, I followed this just as close as anybody could without actually touching this. I don't need to touch it. These are the rope muscle bundles. Look down on them and you see the sarcomeres. Every sarcomere they have these phospholipid membranes on them. And these are primarily where they hit the outside layer of the heart, because they have to go through the membrane to get to the sarcomeres. These are the membranes, all right, and they're phospholipid membranes. That's what a membrane is made out of, is phosphates. So that covers that. These are the sarcomeres, which are clay, and they're spongy, and they're doing all kinds of things with them. This is the rope bundle that surrounds the heart. It's just as simple as that. All right, I think I've shown this pretty clearly. We have the sample with the sarcomeres, and we see the rope bundles, and there's the sarcomeres on a heart attack patient here on Earth with the same chemistry, the same biology, everything. This is the rope-style cardiac muscle. This is all the chemistry that is just exactly identical to us, no difference whatsoever. This is what a heart really actually looks like when you take the top off, and they come right off, right there. They just come off because they're basically almost like glued on there. And what you end up is with this. And this shows that a heart is basically one big long strap of muscle, and it pulls in and twists and does this and that. It's almost like twisting the blood through the body. It doesn't pump. Now, unless there's something wrong with your mind, to say, no, we can't consider that, no. Then you have a problem with your mind. It's not my mind. Now, this is what it looks like, the top of a heart, when you take the plumbing off, which is this. And that's just basically glued on there. I'm not kidding you. Right at that gooey spot right there, it's basically glued. And it pops right off because of iron banding. That's because of there's a red and a black spot. In mud fossils, they're black. Hold on one second, I'll show you that. All right, this is iron banding. And that is why the tubing, all the plumbing parts, come off of the buckets of blood down here. And you can see the valves. So if we took this off, you'd see valves. Let's see if we can find that. This is what we would see. Just like this. The plumbing comes off, and you're right down at the muscle. There's one little piece of tendon that holds it in as well. So now, this is the plumbing right here. You see this? Follow my cursor here on my feather. That's a valve, a big one. There's a smaller one. There's one here, it's good size. and this is the giant one that's over here. And going down this way is where the other side of the heart ends up. And it twists, and that's how it pumps blood. Now, the red and the black, or red and blue here, this is what separates it. And they separate right off, and you see this. As you can see here at Psyche, and you can see here at Bennu. Psyche is just, but it's absolutely enormous. It's got tubes coming out of it. And, you know, they can see it enough to get a good, this is not an actual picture. This is a rendition of it, but it's not, why would they put a tube sticking out of there? I mean, come on. They know what it's structured like, and they know the colors. The red, the yellow, and the black are the colors of oxidated blood. I have followed this thing, and I understand the biology flawlessly. So the preponderance of evidence, I can't imagine having more evidence than this. There just is no more evidence you could have. I'd like to see him do the catalase test. That would be an interesting thing. And where they could want to do it is where there's going to be probably right in this area here. And you see it fuzz up. And I have meteorites here. Here's a little tiny iron meteorite. And, you know, it's not, they don't turn to iron, they turn to metal. But there's a lot of iron in here, and it didn't smelt enough to completely melt. And this has catalase in it. I've done the catalase test on there, and I can tell you exactly what this is. We'll get into my deep details later. But I have enough details here that there is no human mind that can dismiss all this. And just say, oh, the guy's crazy. Oh, it's impossible. No, it's not. My theory, and it is a theory, it's a theory of everything, is that the entire universe is biological. That's all I can find. Every single, you know, Comet 67P spewing out barbecue gases, it's a hip joint. Mau Mau is a finger. I've shown these to the top anatomists in the world, and they don't disagree. They don't want to say, yes, that's exactly what it is, but I've had them say this, but don't use my name. Now, everything I'm showing cannot be dismissed. So it's time to take this serious. NASA has to step up and say, we need to look at this as a possibility. And then we have to go back and read the ancient texts to start over. Was that stuff true? Every culture there was had a story that everything was made out of body parts of creatures. Well, could very well be. By the way, I talked about iron banding here. Let me show you. This is it's going to split. They push apart and they just make a fracture. And that would fall off and go off and drift off into space. Here's what happened where they went down to get the sample. They shot nitrogen gas or something, and they didn't realize it, but every one of these is a meter, so 2 meters. Well, there's 2 meters here, 2, 4, 6, 8. Approximately 8 meters deep they went down. That's a lot. It's like 25 feet. And then they hit the actual membrane that surrounds the heart. Punctured through that and grabbed the chunks of the heart and then took off. Here's what I want you to look at. You see the colors of the blood? You see how there's absolutely no way in the world that black wants to be with this red. It just happens to be stuck here. And you have the yellow, which is the intermediate phase. But you see the black? It's almost like somebody painted it on here. They don't mix. That's why I talk about iron banding. That's why the whole plumbing pops off. Okay, so I guess that's enough for the shocker du jour. I have a ton of information about Mars. But But you have to be able to look and say, that's a heart. It's 144 miles wide. How big were the creatures that lived? I have no idea how big they could have been. Absolutely no. I mean, nobody in their right mind would think about this in this way unless you did the deep research that I did. And I did enough research to know that I'm just correct. And if you can't get your mind into a state that it can see the evidence and the chemistry, and then look at these ancient texts, and they talk about this. That's the crazy thing. They weren't just writing those silly stories to scare kids and whatever. And I'm reading them all. You read Ovid, Hesiod, Apollodorus, all of them. And they have stories to tell that's, whoa. And there's so much to learn now because there's really virtually nothing correct. History's wrong. Geology's way off. Our timeline, no. The things that are in space are biological. I'm telling you, there's nothing that isn't biology. Nothing that I could find. I have a bunch of meteorites here. Every one of them is biological, 100%. And I can prove them. There's no question I'm right. This catalase tested off like crazy. And this is a little tiny lung, and I know that for a fact too because it has a latch on it. The only lungs, everything has that latch, but lungs have it specifically in a spot you can't miss. And I've been testing all of my stuff against that. And here's a 2-inch hair follicle. I have giants here that cannot be denied. Everything I have should have been examined, and it's been refused. This is the reason I'm so deep into this. I had all these specimens over 10 years ago. There's a muscle attached to right there. This right here is the sebaceous gland. The hair comes up the top. The root goes down to the bottom. And these 2 dots are the hair papillae. There's no doubt about it. It's 2 inches wide. Now, I have other stuff here that is human. Well, I don't know if this is human or not, and I don't know what it came from. I have no idea. But I know it's big. I don't think there's anything with a 2-inch hair follicle today. And I have specimens that were DNA tested and CAT scan and everything else. And I realized there was no appetite for truth in academia. None. Zero. This is 15 years I've been fighting against this. Now, when they found, every time they find something, it supports me more and more. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But now, I think today it matters because what you have just seen, if this does not change your mind in some way, your mind is not working. All right, I'm going to wrap it up at this. The chemistry is just undeniable. There's nothing you can do about it. So it's just what it is. It is what it is, and there are hearts in space. This opens up a lot of questions and a lot of new research. I think they should do a catalase test, just for kicks. And here's where I am, Roger at mudfossils.com. I'd like to be involved in this. I've done as much work as anybody on it. I don't see why I shouldn't have, because I want to get my meteorites validated and tested and so forth. The problem is they won't talk to you. If you go outside of the realm of what's mainstream, you're just cut out. And I'm pretty much done with that. All right, I love you all. Bye.